Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another episode of In Defense of. Today we're going to be talking about Sakura Haruno. I have to admit that I am a Sakura simp. So with that being said, it's going to be very easy for me to actually defend Sakura, and given the theme of this particular video itself, it's definitely working in my favor. So with that being said, let's begin. So Sakura was introduced in episode 3, Friend or Foe, where Team 7 was formed for the very first time. The team try to get together, but obviously Sakura ends up ignoring and kind of pushing away Naruto because she finds him annoying. But we also get to the point where Sakura actually tries to get together with Sasuke, and what happens is she ends up messing up a few of her words and she unintentionally pisses off Sasuke. We don't have to go into full detail on that, but Sasuke ends up calling her annoying, which I think it's a good matter of growth for Sakura, because think about this, can you really blame all the girls actually falling for Sasuke? I mean, Sasuke is the most talented person out there. He is an Uchiha, which means he kind of has that so-called good looks to him in the whole Naruto world, so I can't really blame them, and I think the whole being called annoying in return was kind of an eye-opener for Sakura, which kind of set her up for her growth later on, because by the end of the actual episode herself, Sakura actually did invite Naruto in. It's just that there was a misunderstanding where Naruto actually thought Sakura was a transformed version of Sasuke. But we move on to the actual Team 7 meetup where Kakashi is now in as well. Sakura, again, she's still fawning over Sasuke. You can't really blame her, I mean that's pretty typical anyway. But we move on to the actual bell test. Now in this particular bell test, Sakura is shown to have an aptitude for Genjutsu. Unfortunately, she couldn't apply it into the actual situation itself, so it was kind of another bad mark on Sakura's part. But with that being said, I'm going to give a few plus points because of the fact that, again, it's setting her up for a lot of future potential later on. So we move on a bit to the part where Naruto is tied to the stump. Sakura is able to also offer her food, and so it kind of demonstrates the teamwork that Kakashi was looking for. So Team 7 is formed. Let's move on to the Land of Webs arc, where we're actually ambushed by the two brothers from the mist, where they're pretty much just tuning, and in this situation, Sakura was actually one of the more useful ones, where she was actually willing to put herself out there to protect the bridge builder, then Sasuke right in front of her. But of course, we see that Naruto is actually the one that's the most useless, where he was actually just scared and just on the ground until Kakashi jumps in. So that's kind of unfortunate, but let's move on a bit further ahead now, where they actually encounter Zabuza. Now in this particular case, it was kind of a missed opportunity for Sakura to actually have her chance to show her stuff, but you have to think about it like this. Naruto was actually a series that came out really early on, somewhere in the early 2000s, and because of that, it was typical for the female character to kind of act as that whole heroine. So the fact that she was even part of the whole team missions and anything like that, it was already quite a big deal. You know, for her to actually do anything was not likely given how stories were actually done so during that time. You also have to keep in mind that she was also following Kakashi's instruction to not engage anyway. It was just Naruto and Sasuke that was actually doing the different. And the thing is this, with Sakura actually being the one to not do anything and protect the bridge builder by watching over him, it was kind of a really good thing as well, because in this particular situation, it kind of shows a good contrast to show that there are some people that will follow instructions, and then there's other people who are willing to break out of it, like Naruto and Sasuke. And if you actually think about it, when you were actually kids yourselves in school, did you ever disobey the teacher? No, you really didn't. I mean, yeah, there were some students who were like that, but the majority of the class itself would just obey the teacher. So in this case, Sakura was actually the most relatable character in the show. We move a bit ahead where we actually get to the battle in the bridge. So in that particular situation, again, another missed opportunity. Sakura was just following instructions and everything just went about. So let's skip ahead to the actual tune-in exams now. So in this particular situation, what I like most about the tune-in exams was that Sakura was actually able to get through the preliminary test where she was actually able to get that, you know what, Sasuke has no interest in her, and she's actually able to not fall for that trick, and she could see through the genjutsu now. So it was definitely a nice demonstration, a bit of a hint as to the potential she actually had. We move into the point where Kakashi actually did doubt Sakura for the fact that if she didn't actually want to be in the Chunin exams, then this would have held back Sasuke and Naruto, but the fact that she was willing to join in, it was definitely another really awesome thing for it. So they finally enter the actual Chunin exams. We have part 1. Part 1 itself of the exam, Sakura was pretty much one of the MVPs, where she was actually able to pretty much do the whole test or the exam itself on her own. Like, she was actually smart enough to do it on her own. And keep in mind, even Sasuke had trouble, even Neji had trouble, because both Sasuke and Neji had to use their eyes to actually get through this. And with Sakura, she was actually just going through this exam as if it was nothing. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And keep in mind, a lot of these questions, I try to solve them myself, and yeah, it's pretty hard. Now we move on to the second part of the exam, the Forest of Death. So in this particular scenario, we see that they have their encounter with Orochimaru, kind of a big eye-opener. I mean, I'm not going to blame him, even Sasuke was kind of scared as well, and Naruto was mainly just an idiot who was willing to actually go in for the fight anyway, and we kind of got to saw that Naruto ended up getting stomped by Orochimaru anyway, so it didn't really matter what happened there. What was great is that Sakura actually was able to take the initiative after that and take care of both Sasuke and Naruto, and yeah, it was definitely really amazing when the Sound Ninja actually finally attacked Dosu, Zaku, and Kin. When they all came to attack, Sakura was actually willing to defend them no matter what. She set up a bunch of traps, which was definitely very smart. And yeah, the whole episode called Sakura actually blossoming was a really great episode that showcased Sakura being who she was. You know, she's not born into a family of talents like Naruto and Sasuke, and she was actually able to show her stuff. She showed her determination, and you know what comes down to it is how much she actually put effort into something, not whether or not you're born with talent. And she takes a rough beating throughout that particular battle. I mean, she took shuriken, she took several blows to the head, and yeah, it was just really sad to see, but also a great growth factor with her also cutting off her hair as well, showing great development there, and pretty early on as well in the series. This also gave us a pretty cool moment where Sasuke's curse mark awakened for the first time, and the first thing he asked was, "Who did this to you, Sakura?" And that was just something that I found to be quite awesome. But we move on to the third part of the exam where Sakura is actually pleading for Sasuke to get out of it because of his curse mark. Kind of makes sense, you know. I mean, she only is taking care of him, or she has genuine concern for him. But, you know, Sasuke ends up going along there, and things go as they are, so that's no big deal. We get to the fight where Sakura actually goes up against Ino, and, you know, to be honest, it's not one of the best fights out there. It kind of shows that at this point in time, Sakura and Ino are the two weakest, and the fact that Sakura was able to get out of Ino's mind control or mind transfer jutsu, it's kind of consistent if you ask me. My theory is that the mind transfer jutsu is some form of genjutsu itself, where, you know, you're taking over someone's mind, and the fact that Sakura was actually able to break it through sheer will, it kind of makes sense given that at the very beginning, it was already hinted that Sakura had an aptitude. In fact, one quick thing I wanted to mention that I actually forgot was that at the very beginning of the Chunin exams where they were actually going into the wrong floor, although Sakura didn't mention it right away and Sasuke kind of had to remind her, she did notice that they were on the second floor and they had to go into the third floor. But of course, Sakura is now put out of commission in this particular state, so we kind of have to move on and skip very far ahead, where from this point onwards she kind of doesn't have too much of a involvement here, because we get to the invasion of the leaf where they chase over Gaara, and again she kind of gets caught up in there, and I don't really blame it, because in this particular situation, the series was still relatively during that time in the early 2000s. So with that being said, she still kind of had that whole heroine role, and that was typical for female characters in a lot of anime. Now at this particular point in time, I do like Team 7's relationship, because Sakura is opening herself up a lot more, and she actually does show genuine care for Naruto in each and every one of these situations. It's just that every time she punches Naruto for the things he says, it kind of reminds me of like this whole brother-sister relationship where Sakura is kind of playing that role of the older sister. So to move just a bit further ahead, obviously the funeral happens of the third Hokage. Everything's all over now, and we're moving on to the whole search for Tsunade arc. So in this case, Itachi and Kisame coming to the village, and Kakashi's put out a commission, and then eventually Sasuke is also put out a commission. At this point, I will say that although she doesn't have too much involvement, I do like her character a lot for the fact that she shows genuine concern for both Naruto and Sasuke, and even is willing to go to the hospital and actually visit Lee as well, providing him with some flowers. So that's quite endearing. Now, during the search for Tsunade arc, Sasuke is out of commission, Kakashi is out of commission, and Lee is still injured, and they're obviously, going to search for Tsunade. Tsunade comes back because obviously I'm only mentioning the parts where Sakura is actually involved. When Tsunade comes back, she's kind of already an inspiration to a lot of female kunoichi, and in this case, Sakura's already looking up to Tsunade after the fact that she was able to just bring back Sasuke just by doing some kind of trick on his forehead. Now, of course, one of the big moments, Sasuke actually gets into the fight with Naruto, and Sakura tries to stop it. I mean, with how the team has actually been developing, I actually really like their relationship. So to see that the team was kind of breaking apart, it only makes sense that Sakura would end up crying because of this particular situation. Kakashi reassures her that everything's gonna be okay, but of course we know what happens. Sasuke gets taken, and he's not taken, he's convinced to leave the village, and so Sasuke leaves. Sakura unfortunately couldn't really bring back Sasuke, but she does get a thank you from Sasuke for the final time before he actually leaves. The team gets formed. Sakura unfortunately was unable to join, but that was more of a missed opportunity because she came just a little bit later, so Shikamaru couldn't actually organize his plans to fit Sakura into the team itself. So the Sasuke retrieval team fails, they come back, Sakura finds out, she's actually okay with it. Because of Sakura's plea, Naruto did make that promise, and Sakura did kind of feel bad about it, so she was actually able to kind of take it away, but Naruto just refused to take it away, and that's obviously normal. I mean, for Naruto, it's to give him a proper goal, but with Sakura's case, she was willing to let go of the whole promise, and she just had concern for Naruto. But with that being said, the rest of the series was really just a bunch of filler, and we move on to Shippuden after that. So I think I'll conclude it here for part 1, and I think part 2 I should be able to cover everything that happens in Shippuden. Hopefully it's not going to be too long in that video, but we'll just see what happens there. Alright, if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely leave a thumbs up and also share it as well. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out when part 2 comes out. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. This is Enigma signing out.